Our guest today is the President and CEO of Choose Chicago. He is responsible for marketing Chicago to visitors worldwide. Prior to this, our guest today held the CEO position at the Indianapolis Convention and Visitors Association. Our guest today has 20-plus years in the hotel business. He and his wife, Jean, live in Chicago and are the proud parents of 4 daughters, Ashley, Laura, Amanda, and Sarah. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Welsh. Don?
Well, good afternoon, everybody, on this balmy Monday morning. Jay, thank you so much for having me today. I must tell you, looking at this distinguished audience today, I'm humbled that you all would come out to hear tourism delivered by a person that's been on the job for a little bit over 2 years. But we are just so grateful for the support you've given us, and can't thank you enough. Today is going to be a little bit of a show and tell, and it's truly going to hopefully bring you up to speed. There's a lot of us in this room today who live and breathe tourism day in and day out. And there are plenty in this room that don't. So hopefully by the time we finish here, those that don't call their day-to-day business the tourism industry, you'll have a little better understanding of what we're doing. Father, I want to thank you for praying for me today here. I'm going to need all the prayers I can get to get through this day, but I thank you so much for that kind thought. On your table are a couple things I want to let you know. There are a few things. First and foremost, since we are one day beyond St. Patrick's Day, we thought it would be a nice thing to give everybody a shamrock, and there's a shamrock for each of you at your table from Mercy Home. And I know many of you in this room are very familiar with Mercy Home and the great work they do, and this is a small token of our appreciation for you hearing what we're here to talk about today. In addition to that, there are a few things, so unless you're inclined to take copious notes, you don't need to. There is a 2012 annual report. We just had our annual meeting a couple weeks ago, and a lot of the information I'm going to share with you today is in there, and some that's not. There's also some things in here. Clearly, we've had a lot of great victories in this city over the last couple of years, and some of the greatest victories tied to some of the great reforms from a labor standpoint. And everything you want to know about the labor reforms and all the great changes that have taken place here, which I'll talk about in a second, are there. And then last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about a subject that's near and dear to me since it just occurred yesterday. Who in this room had a chance to go out and see any of the games at the United Center for the Big Ten? Okay, not enough. Next year, 2015, when we get them back. You know, we're very fortunate. We had the Big Ten for many years and a lot of other sporting events, but unfortunately, for many reasons, the Big Ten went away. And I'm pleased to say the Big Ten came back with a vengeance this past weekend with their basketball tournament. There were 11 incredible basketball games at United Center. And one of the greatest things was when the Big Ten decided to come back to Chicago, they looked at our city and they said, well, one of the reasons we're coming back is in Indianapolis, where they've been, they hold about 16,000 to 17,000 people in their arena. We hold 25. Well, I'm pleased to say that we had a sellout of those tickets about 6 weeks ago. So leading the charge, I want to just take a moment, because it is part of the presentation today. We launched the Sports Commission about 18 months ago. And it was something many of you probably in the room thought we had here in Chicago. We've done a great job. We're clearly one of the greatest cities in the world when it comes to sports. But we didn't have an area where, if you were a promoter, where you could take an event and really have one-stop shopping. And one of the things we did, we went out and recruited one of the best people in the industry to lead this charge. When I was recruiting him, I lied to him. I said, by the way, I recruited him in the spring. But it's Sam Stark, who I want to maybe would stand up. Sam Stark is our executive director. His team did an incredible job of welcoming people. We had a sellout, and if you were downtown for the St. Patrick's festivities, clearly you ran into the Big Ten fans from around the country. Ohio State had a great victory, and we're going to go on from there. I also want to just thank, I appreciate Jay picking out some of the people in the audience, because one of the slides I had to begin with was actually a slide of all the people I needed to thank. It would have taken me a half hour to do that, but I just want to thank again many of the key people that are in this room today that have brought their teams. And one of the things that I will tell you before I launch into our little overview here is, in order to make a guest experience great, it's almost like the legs on your chair. You know, when they're all hitting there, you got a nice, even experience. But when people see that the restaurants are working together and the hotels are working together and there was a coordinated airport effort and all the attractions and all the key partners work together, it's known by meeting planners. It's known by you when you travel somewhere with your families. And I must tell you that is happening here in Chicago, and it's happening quickly, and it's scaring a lot of cities because in many cases, we weren't talking with one united front. We are now. And I just can't thank many of the leaders in the room today that are with us. So with that in mind, I think we're going to start getting into the presentation. We're going to talk about Chicago and what our objectives are today. I have two today. One is to basically talk about this industry. And this industry, and hopefully you can see this, this is a $12 billion industry and growing. Lou Raisin is very active on our board. Lou's on our executive committee, and he's seated right up front today. We've got a lot of focus now basically saying, where are we today as an industry? And right now it's about $12 billion, but we'll talk about where we're heading as an industry and as a city. And the other thing, I was sitting with Martha at our table. When we leave here today, I hope that you are as excited about this industry as we are. And those of us who get a chance to live and work here, we want you to become tourism ambassadors. That's the other objective we have out of this today, to realize how important the industry and those of you in business and civic and political leadership, what we can individually do to become tourism ambassadors. To help you do that, we have a little app. Warren Wilkinson, our Chief Marketing Officer, is here also today, and he's the proud pop of this. This is something that he and his team worked on. Go to choosechicago.com. It's something that's great. It's updated. There's activities. There's anything you need. So when you've got the family and friends coming in, make sure that you have that available, and we can tell you all about that. So as we get into the discussion today in terms of why I'm so excited, and by the way, I don't have caffeine anymore, and this is a low-key Don Welsh. I truly believe this, in all honesty, that I have the greatest job in the industry. I have the greatest job representing the greatest city in terms of tourism in the country, and I'll tell you a story at the end if I have enough time. But every day we get a chance to come in here, and those of us who do what we do, we get a chance to market the greatest city in the United States. And I know many of you from here. I was in Westin hotels and Ritz-Carlton hotels for many, many years. I came here. I never lived here until technically 2 years ago with this job. But I've always had this fondness for the city. So for us and our team to be able to do this every day. I have many of my team here today who came. I bribed them and said, you know what, nice free lunch today. But I get a chance to work with an incredibly talented and dedicated group of people that every day they come to work saying, what are they going to do to make the city better? And they're here with me today. And as I said also, I get a chance to work with an incredibly dedicated group of people that are in the room today that represent different industries. So I got a lot of people to thank, and we're going to get into the presentation today. So who are we? This is just a quick overview. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but we are a member-based organization. I'm pleased to say that our membership is growing more rapidly by the day. We've always been about 1,200, 1,300 members. We've changed the membership model. Nina Winston, who's with us, has been working tirelessly with Jordan Engerman, and we have a new membership model. We're a 25-person board. Bruce Rauner, many of you know, is our chairman. Bruce has been here. This board is going to go from 25 members to 35 members now that we've consolidated between the two organizations that we'll talk about. We have about 100 employees, and majority of our people are near McCormick Place, right next to McCormick West. We also have a small building that we work now that we brought the organization together from the Sports Commission, Arts and Culture, and others. And we have some people satellite as well. As both Jay and others have alluded to, we have the distinct honor and pleasure to be responsible for all market segments within Chicago. Not just group, not just leisure, not just subsets. We have the privilege of being responsible for the brand of Chicago when it comes to tourism. And that is a lot of change here. Next, please. This is the way it looked for many, many, many years in Chicago. And again, I also think, and I neglected to say, I think looking at the city from a distance and looking in the job I have now, we are so blessed to have had one of the most visionary mayors in Mayor Daley. And we are so blessed now to have a visionary mayor and Mayor Emanuel in terms of two incredible thought people in terms of what they created for us to sell and market in the city. However, under Mayor Emanuel, we decided to look around the world to say, you know what, is this the most efficient model? And the answer came back after about a year's study in terms of a study and said, you know what, it really wasn't. So we looked at best practices around the country, around the world, and we looked at this and said, you know what, we're going to change it. So this is what we've come up with. Before, you may have seen the number. It was more or less two organizations. One, the CCTB, many of you knew that, Chicago Convention and Tourism Bureau, used to be really focused on McCormick Place and conventions. Then there was sort of a dividing line and said, you know what, this group over here at the city, it's going to focus on leisure. And in many cases, there was some communication, but clearly multiple websites, multiple efforts, and about 140-some people performing the jobs now that about 90-plus full-time people do. So when you look at Choose Chicago, we immediately were able to save some efficiencies to have one organization representing the brand. And as I said earlier, we have the responsibility now. This new organization became effective in July of this past year. So we're still in the infancy stages of bringing together in terms of strategy and some of the other areas. This is something that is so important. And when I did get into the job, even before taking it, there were some discussions I had with Lou and Bruce and others saying, if Chicago really does want to compete with those other cities that we're going to talk about in a second, the New Yorks, the Las Vegases, the San Franciscos, the Orlandos, it has to have the tools in its arsenal to do it. And to be honest with you, one of the things we looked at when you see that 13.8, the budget in Indianapolis, which we all know is a fraction of the size of Chicago, the budget in Indianapolis was $15.5 million before I left to come up here. So we had the smallest budget of any major city in the country. Well, through the help and leadership of Jack Johnson, through the help and leadership at the state level, with Andy and the governor and others, and clearly with the help of Mayor Emanuel, we've addressed this, and we've addressed this quickly in terms of getting the funds necessary to market all the assets of our great city. So when you look at this, we've technically gone from 13 million to 32 million. Those of you who were not at our annual meeting a couple weeks ago, this was great news to those of us in the industry. Mayor Emanuel made a commitment at the annual meeting to fund it in addition to what the city was putting into it, an additional $5 million more. We're working closely with Commissioner Andolino because that additional $5 million is going to be directed to really the international markets, or people that are really going to use both O'Hare and Midway in terms of really increasing our overall long-haul visitors, both domestically and internationally, which we'll talk about as one of our strategies. But between the commissioner and the mayor, this was just great news. We'll show you some other cities that we're competing with. This is not a typo. So when you see Las Vegas, it is not by coincidence that every time you turn on your computer or every time you turn on the television, that Las Vegas's budget is $225 million. Before the economy took a little downturn, their economy was $250 million. In terms of their business. Difference is they have to run their building out of that as well. But I will tell you that Las Vegas, to this day, spends about $50 million a year in search engine optimization. So it's not by coincidence that what stays in Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, is omnipresent in everything we do. They spend a ton of money. Orlando. The city that we compete with a lot for conventions is Orlando and Las Vegas. And this $50 million that is going to go to $100 million in the next couple of years is not even a fair number. Because remember, they have these two small little corporations based in Orlando, such as Disney and Universal, that sort of supplement their budget exponentially. So again, when you look at this, New York, we know that whenever Mayor Bloomberg sees something that he likes, Mayor Bloomberg gets a big checkbook out and literally writes something to support the efforts in New York as well. So these are the numbers we compete with. We are extremely grateful for what we have now, and we'll tell you how we're going to be spending it. This was the one thing that, again, my background was primarily in the hotel business, but I did run the Seattle CVB for 5 years and then Indianapolis for a couple years. And the one disconnect that I did see in this job versus other industries is a lot of times this is like a stealth industry. The tourism industry is stealth until something happens when it goes away. And all of a sudden tax revenues start to decline. And all of a sudden city leaders begin to say, where are those revenues? Where did it go? So I believe one of the things I've talked about in all three cities is the fact that tourism is economic development like any other industry there may be. Where we are today as an industry is, you can literally see 43.6 million visitors came to our great city in 2011. The 2012 data will be in about 6 weeks. We feel confident to say we exceeded 45 million, but we'll work with the mayor's office and have an official announcement. But we clearly are heading to this growth goal that the mayor's given us. And what it's responsible for now is close to 130,000 jobs, vitally important jobs to our community. It's representing $12 billion in revenues we talked about and more. And it's representing over $700 million in taxes. And we'll talk about, and again, these are preliminary 12 data and year-end final numbers for 12. The report card. we have made some positive gains. Clearly, the economy is behind us. There's definitely momentum coming back there. In terms of the movement of the industry, it's coming back. The one thing I did learn in this job, coming from the hotel business, when things are good, a CVB never gets the credit. When things are not so good, there's where you get the opportunity for improvement. But nonetheless, here's a report card. We get a daily report card at our organization that measures hotel performance. Hotel performance is a key metric that we look at in terms of how well is the city doing. I think the interesting trend is, as you knew, we took a rather precipitous fall off. When the economy went south, we went a little bit further south than some, and I'm pleased to say if you look back, the high water marks here were 2006, 2007. In terms of occupancy, you can see clearly we were well into the 72+% range, 75. And I'm pleased to say that we finished 2012 at 75.2%. We came within basically a fraction of a point to set an all-time record in the city last year, which is a very positive trend. And clearly Mark Gordon and all the hoteliers in this number look at this. When you look at daily rate, this is more or less, and by the way, we track 100 hotels downtown, 35,000 rooms is within the comp set. So you can see rate built very well this past year as well. 187.27, very respectable. And the key three metrics we look at, Maggie, you can go to the next one. This is revenue per available room. That is basically what a hotelier and their owner take to the bank. And more or less you can see that we were up 10% there. So in terms of the three key metrics, occupancy, average rate, and RevPAR, we were either 1, 2, or 3 in our competitive set, which includes the top 10 cities in the country. So again, good progress, good movement, and with probably the additional things we're going to talk about in 13 and beyond, hopefully these numbers will go up. This is the number that we just added. And what we want to do is begin showing the city, our aldermen, the mayor, and others, in terms of what hotel taxes represent to the city alone. So you can see nice positive trend there. You would expect that as average rate and occupancy increase, as does the taxes. However, we did something, we finally broke the 100 million mark in terms of the city's portion of hotel tax collection back to the city based on the year we had last year. You may recall that if we would have not added the additional hotel tax, 1 point of hotel tax was added in 2012, we would have been at 80+ million. As a result of that, the city, which vitally needs taxes, as we know, was able to move an incremental $20+ million into its coffers as a result of the 1%. First question people ask, has it hurt us in terms of business? And the answer right now is no. We think we've hit the ceiling in terms of where we could be at 16.5%, but this is a very important measurement for us to look at. Our business goals. Our business goals are really primarily three. And we'll talk about some of the subsets and hopefully set it up for some questions from all of you. This is where Lou and Bruce and others, the mayor established this growth goal of 50 million people about a year ago. And this was a very aggressive growth goal, but we know right now that 50 million is a number that we're going to achieve well before 2020. Well before 2020. And we know with the mayor, that will be reset quickly and we'll be moving on to a different number. But in the meantime, that is the growth goal that we have on that. The other goal is to book 2.3 million room nights. That's 2.3 million convention room nights annually. If you didn't know it, we have 2.6 million square feet at McCormick Place. David Costin runs the largest convention center in the Western Hemisphere. And rightfully so, the organization now is required as part of our agreement with MPA to book 2.3 million. Brad Kent is our new Senior Vice President of Sales and Services who joined us about 90 days ago. He's up to the task. He's got a great team. But we'll talk a little bit about why we feel confident on that. And then the third is to elevate us currently. And if you didn't know the statistic, this is one that was surprising to me. We're going to move from our current 10th position in international business to number 5. And we'll talk about each of these individually. I know many of you, as I said earlier, when you look at this, this started well before I got here a couple years ago. But as you may or may not know, many of our customers who've been extremely loyal to Chicago for decades, finally about 4 years ago said, you know what? We love Chicago, we love our history here, but we can't stay here unless you do some things radically to get your cost in line with Orlando, Las Vegas, and other cities. And through the leadership of the governor, the mayor, and many of the gentlemen sitting around this table here with Jorge Ramirez, we began discussions in earnest to do some things that we've never done before. And one of the things we're doing now is, with Brad and his team and David and his team, along with our labor leaders, this is something that is historic in our city. We now sit with customers, and we are sitting at the table with them when they're negotiating between Orlando, Las Vegas, any other city in the country. And when they want to know about labor, it's no longer Don Welsh or Brad Kent or David Costin talking. It's our labor leaders. And that is a major, major change. We've done this now in 3 cities. We went to Washington, D.C., where you've got about 13,000 associations, and we did 2 major events there. We went to San Francisco because the technology sector now is incredibly important to us. And then we just finished in Philadelphia, where some of the high-tech companies as well as pharmaceuticals. So I can't thank labor enough, because, to be honest with you, it was, in the past, it was like going into a fight with one arm behind your back. That is no longer the case here in Chicago, and again, a lot of people came together to make this happy, and I feel extremely fortunate, and I know that our sales team is extremely blessed by that. We're going to show you a quick video here. Rather than me talk about it, you'll hear a customer talk about how important it is.
Recent labor reform makes Chicago the most customer-friendly meetings destination in the Western Hemisphere.
My name is Chris Price. I produce an annual show, Graph Expo, every 3 years and every 4th year print at McCormick Place. Those labor changes and being solid now are making a complete difference. Our exhibitors can do so many more of the things themselves on the show floor, saving them money. With the other reduced costs and so on, it enables them to use the money to have deeper engagement with the attendees that they come to Chicago to see.
Creative venues set the stage for memorable off-site events, and at McCormick Place, flexible convention space combines with first-rate amenities and logistics.
Whether it be big exhibitors, medium-sized exhibitors, or small exhibitors, whether they have equipment or not, the costs of the past were prohibitive. Today, with the changes in Chicago solidified, people are happier. They start off the show with less stress, less hassle, and a better experience to start. 74% of my exhibitors are saving 36% as compared to just a few years ago. We're a fan. Thanks.
It's hard not to feel like the center of the universe in Chicago. Perfectly situated along stunning Lake Michigan, McCormick Place is easily accessible to Chicago's 2 airports and convenient to downtown and the surrounding hotels.
So they're the kind of comments we're getting back from customers. As a matter of fact, I think our marketing team just finished with 2 the other day. And rather than us talk about savings and the benefits of working in Chicago, we're hearing from customers. And that voice you heard was Bill Curtis, and he was kind enough to volunteer and do some things for us and a lot of our marketing materials as well. The next thing is on the regional side. So I'm going to give you 4 pillars that we talk about. First is convention. Second is regional. And this is where there was sort of an aha moment, and we found out that we didn't have television commercials. We didn't aggressively market right in the satellite states. 70% of the business come to Chicago. 70% comes from the 7 states that are surrounding our state. That's a pretty impressive number when you think about it, but we got a big world to go after. But one of the things that our marketing team has done, they created 2 television commercials, one for the summer, one for the winter, to talk about all the great things to do. These are the data. This is the data from 2012. Drove 374,000 incremental visits to our city during that need period of time. $325 million in direct spending to the community. And if you look at the ROI, again, it was sort of low-hanging fruit in some of these things, and I know Warren feels the same way, but 163-to-1 ROI. And I think if you look at most destination organizations around the country, they're about 50-to-1. Now, if we continue to do our job, that number will decline. But I think as the marketing team looks, there's certainly other opportunities. And we're going to show you the 2 ads. They're 30 seconds each, and you can take a little. Here's the markets we're running in, by the way: Detroit, Grand Rapids, Indianapolis, Milwaukee, St. Louis. And we're also beginning to look. The Canadian market is extremely important to us, and we're actually looking at running the regional ads in Toronto this summer.
With a city like this, you better bring your A game. Come see why Chicago is second to none. Visit ChooseChicago.com to plan your trip today. With a city like this, you better bring your A game. Come see why Chicago is second to none. Visit ChooseChicago.com to plan your trip today.
Well, I can't wait for that weather to return, huh? They're the two ads, and they've played extremely well. They played so well that, again, we're going to continue to expand them. Warren produced those literally for pennies on the dollar, and they're playing pretty well in the markets. The next market gets a little bit tougher. And again, now we've got two. Now the third is national. This is the one thing that I know I speak on behalf of our board. We have countless discussions, and I know those of you who live and work here. It's amazing how East Coasters will get on an airplane and fly to California for the weekend, or Californians will fly to New York or Boston or DC and others, but somehow we're like a flyover. And we sit there and say, those of us who live and work in this industry, we have the greatest hotels, we've got the greatest restaurants, we've got an abundance of art and culture. We've got everything there is those other places have, but we've just not told their story. So we've got a major, major push right now from a national standpoint. We're fortunate. Just think, we've got American and United Airlines based here in Chicago. We've got Midway. There's no excuse that people can't get here. We've just not focused our time. Megan Risch is our Vice President of Public Relations. Megan has kept her running shoes on since Warren and I have gotten here. But Megan and our public relations team are now going to be spending a lot of time with key publications in the East Coast and the West Coast. Condé Nast, Travel Leisure, Wall Street Journal, places to where we can get editorial support, because again, from a cost standpoint, it's awful expensive for a city, let alone a state, to be able to go into those areas. But we've also got some big ideas that we're working on that would potentially allow us to target the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, the San Francisco, the Bay Area, talking about all the great things there are. So you're going to see more and more of a focus on the national side. And the other one is international. We all have ahas when we get in our job. This was mine. And again, I started my career years ago with United. And I always figured Chicago had to be in the top 3 easily, top 5 of international cities. Again, with O'Hare and with United's headquarters here and American Airlines subbed here and all the international. And I was surprised that we were basically number 10 when I got into this job. And here are the cities, and I know you're going to be looking at them and saying, okay, I can understand maybe New York or LA, but clearly Boston and Honolulu, and okay, our nation's capital, that may be a different thing. But these are the cities that are in front of us. And I will tell you, between the commissioner and our team, as well as Mayor Emanuel, this is not where we're focused on. So, and the reason why everybody pushes for international, this is not a typo, I don't know whether you can see this. The average international person coming to this country spends $4,000 per person per stay. So, and here's the interesting thing also, that when we looked at data, the data was 26 million people came to the United States in 2012 overseas. Not Canada, not Mexico, overseas, long haul traffic. New York got almost 34%. 34% translates to their #1 position. And literally now, what they really do is, they're a 2-tier market. They are domestic leisure and international leisure. That's what they focus on. They're putting a disproportionate percentage there. But right now in Chicago, we're about 3%, 3.5% of the total inbound business. So between the commissioner's efforts, our efforts, we're going to change this because of a lot of reasons. And I know you all travel, but this is just wrong. And we've got a lot of efforts to do this. Let me tell you some of the things we're doing quickly to fix it. Kathy DeMonico is our Vice President of Tourism, is in the back here. Between Kathy and Warren, for the last 15 months, they've traveled the world and have opened these 9 offices. And by the way, between those two, other than some things we've done, and by the way, I should tell you right now, Jen Holsel is here from the state. We work very closely with the state on strategy, very closely with the state on strategy. But these are offices that we have opened that really their responsibility is to sell the city of Chicago in all these markets. And we can't get them open fast enough. We can't get them up and running fast enough. And really what they focus on are travel agencies, tour operators, media in those marketplaces, and the airlines. And then what we do is just once we get people here, which I'll quickly show you some of the things we've done. These are pieces, and by the way, we'll make this, presentation available if any of you would like it. But you may or may not see that, but that publication that's highlighted there was British Airways last October. British Airways, and it says more or less, think this is Manhattan, think again. And as a result of the work that Megan and her team did, we entertained a journalist almost a year earlier before this publication ran. That person ran the most glowing article about the city of Chicago and said, "I've now found my new love in the United States, Chicago." So really what we need to do is just get them here. And to be honest with you, the city sells itself incredibly well. That's just some. What we've done also, we've now translated all of our publications. Bill Curtis did not do the translations. Spanish, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, Chinese. He was pretty off on his Mandarin. And then Japanese. And we're doing everything we can to push this out as quickly as we can internationally. You know, and it's amazing, the other day between the games and St. Patrick's Day, it was amazing and so great to see the number of international tourists in the city. So, a lot of work there. Now, in closing, and I appreciate you bearing with me on this, the upside. What's the upside to our community? The upside is as we quickly go through the 50 million into 60 million and beyond, what is the most important thing we can deliver right now in this community? Sure, revenues are important, but what we need to deliver right now are jobs. And there is no industry that can deliver jobs faster and good paying jobs to many of the young men and women in this community who can't find jobs, who are coming out of school and looking for things to do. And between the restaurants and the hotels and the attractions to be able to do things, we can employ. This is where right now the mayor is pushing day in and day out to create new jobs. So it's new jobs. It takes direct spending to $15 billion from our $12 billion now, and it raises taxes. It almost doubles it. And I know we all know right now that we need additional tax revenues. So a lot of great things take place. What's on the horizon? I did want to show you that this is a great indicator for a community. When developers start saying you've hit a certain number or you've got enough business in the pipeline, that's when all of a sudden they start putting hard dollars into the community. And right now we've got 5 hotels under construction, another 6 on the horizon, and that gives us 4,000 new rooms. I don't know from a hotel room standpoint what it means from an employment standpoint, but that's in the 30,000. We had a dinner meeting with Sir Richard Branson about 3 weeks ago, a couple of us, and he spoke the next day to the YPO group. You know, he's got Virgin Airlines, Virgin Records, everything else, and he's now creating Virgin Hotels. And the first Virgin Hotel they're building in the world is in Chicago. And I think somebody stood up and said, well, why Chicago? Again, this nice Midwest differential. Why not Chicago? And somebody said, well, why not New York or LA or London? And he said, as far as they were concerned, all their analysts, all the developers came back and said this was the fastest growing domestic and international city in the country. And out of his love of the city, he said, this is where they're launching that brand. This is the kind of things we're hearing from outside the community. So that's all great news. The impact of tourism, we're shovel ready. The opportunities are here now. Jobs, these are jobs that they can't be outsourced around the world. It's a growing source, as we just showed you, from both jobs and tax revenues, and it's a critical part of our economic makeup. And I think, hopefully, for all of you, even if you walk out of here and say, okay, I know a little bit about tourism, these things will hopefully keep your taxes down. These things will make the streets safer and cleaner and everything else the mayor is focused on. These will fill potholes. If we do what we're capable of. And we're just very jazzed about that in terms of the opportunity. So hopefully I've answered most of your questions. I did want to mention to you one thing, and it won't take me long at all. You know, this is the 12th city my family and I have lived in. We've lived all around. And I've told the story over and over, and people, you'll always come up to me, and I have 1 million miles in United, 1 million in American, and about 800,000, so I was gone my whole life. And people would say, what are your favorite cities in the world? And they've been asking me this for 20 years. People don't travel much. And I'd say London, Hong Kong, Chicago. And I never lived here. And they look at me, okay, I get to London, I get to Hong Kong, and you know, Chicago, why not San Francisco? Why not New York? And my response has always been, back then, and it is now in this job, Chicago's got everything that any of the other top cities in the world has and more. And one of the things that we have are gracious, genuine, kind mentality here, where you see people and you go up, and if they've got a map out, I've seen it countless times where people walk up and say, how can I help you? In terms of the physical assets, New York can't touch us. You know, just look around, just walk around and go to New York and walk around that city. And again, that's not to talk negatively about our competition, but sometimes I think when you live somewhere long enough, you begin taking it for granted. And my message to all of us right now is if we get a chance to live and work in this great city and be citizens of this city, we have so much to be proud of. And that's the ambassador part of it that I hope we'll all sort of embrace a little bit further. And I can't thank you again enough for coming out and listening to me ramble about this, this great industry that I get a chance to represent and the wonderful people that I get a chance to work. So I just want to say thank you again, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I just wish you could have been a little more enthusiastic. I certainly, well, we'll do our job. Next time Skinny speaks, it'll be in French. Of course, we'll be doing this only in German from now on. We are going to be doing all that stuff, so that's our thing. Okay, I have time for very few questions and very short answers. Okay, first, Father Ryan always gets priority. Does your marketing strategy also include a partnership with the many universities in Chicago? I won't name them all because I'll leave some out and some of you will say I'm doing favoritism. But are you marketing the universities?
Yes, we are. Education. There's two subsets that really are becoming critical tourism segments. One is the medical tourism, and the other is education tourism. Matter of fact, when we were in China recently, there are organizations that literally all they do is more or less focus on working with cities and countries and universities to bring their students there, and the answer is yes.
Okay. From Joy Saxon, Board of Governors. Do you do any work with the World Chicago Organization? Miss Peggy's over there, which hosts visiting foreign dignitaries.
We're doing more with World Business Chicago than we do with World Chicago. And that doesn't mean we don't partner up with them, but to be honest with you can see me stumbling on this answer. The answer is no. You said be brief and honest. But we will.
As a university employee, I didn't think you'd be that brief. Okay. Ken Griffith's Wolf Point Strategies. Where are you, Kent? Start building that thing, you'll be moving on up. Don't worry. Make this crap up. What is the actual ROI for each tax dollar? You know, this could explain a lot. Please cite real and identify sources of taxes and ROI figures, which of course means return on investment. Franzek was ready. Okay, if you can understand that question, you answer it.
Kent, for some of the other, by the way, the way the tax charts flow to this organization are actually, Jack Johnson's our public affairs person here who's with me. We can give you specifics in terms of what is the city. I wanted to show, this is the first time, by the way, I showed the city's actual tax collection. So when you saw the tax collection of about $120 million in taxes, that ROI is more or less based on about a $5 million investment by the city in terms of what they've done to generate that through their investment with us. So I'll be happy to go through it, but when you start seeing the different sources, you would actually need to take what is the investment from a food and beverage, what's the investment from hotel tax. We actually focus on what the collection is from what we focus on the most, and that really is the hotel portion. So what I shared with you today has not been shared, and that's the hotel tax generated from our investment. But again, we'll be happy to answer any specifics, but I'll save everybody from...
Okay, well, we have another question from a university, Joan Knox from St. Xavier. I have to mention her name because Sister Sue will be you'll report back to Sister Sue and I'll be in trouble. Another one, how can the universities help? You've answered that. You'll start thinking about them. Okay, Maureen Martino, Lakeview East Chamber of Commerce. Not Lakeview West, right? No, okay. By the way, Lakeview West goes all the way to Austin now. Here we go. Sorry, mushing. From the $32 million budget, what portion will be applied to the neighborhoods? Good question.
That is a good question. And that's where we probably differ a little bit in the past from when we had the City Office of Tourism. We have a very, very talented, Melissa Cherry's joined us. I haven't seen Melissa in the audience right now. But we are going to have, this is an organization that will take assets that have been developed. We're not going to build content anymore. So we will liaison with every neighborhood. Right now, Warren, I think we've got, how many neighborhood videos have we shot, and what's the plan? You want to respond to that?
We're in the process of developing videos and content on special website. The first pilot.
Speak out. Speak up.
The first pilot for the video series for the neighborhood has been shot. We plan to start shooting an entire series of all the neighborhoods this spring, as well as we're developing a special website for the neighborhoods that will live within the ChooseChicago.com world, and that will go live in August of this year as well. So we're developing content and then driving people to choose Chicago, who can then take advantage of all the information we have on the neighborhoods.
The first two that Warren did was Wicker Park and Bucktown. And we actually, if you were at the annual meeting, you see we've engaged now Second City. So Second City is now, rather than Warren or myself or Megan out doing this, we actually have Second City actors that are having great tongue-in-cheek with the uniqueness of each of the neighborhoods. And as he said, we have two in the can right now, and we're ready to go full speed on that. We have a major sponsor that will help us underwrite this, that will move to our website, and eventually this could become something that we'd even run on regional television.
Two more questions. Along that line, we have Paul Canella. Where are you, Paul? See, only the people in the back raise questions. You guys in the front, you're pretty sure of yourself. Okay, here we go. Paul Canella, North Halstead Business Alliance. Question is, how are Choose Chicago budgets allocated and targeted marketed? You know, speaking is where, that's how I make my living, as you can tell. And targeted markets chosen. Are there plans to increase the LGBT tourism?
Good question. In terms of how we spend the money now, each of the international offices, we develop a budget and what the corresponding in-market activities would be. From a regional standpoint, those markets that I told you about that have generated $300+ million in return on investment, Warren works with a very solid company called MBuy. They work with him to determine what are the markets that needed to be targeted, and how much from a penetration standpoint do we need to get our message across. In terms of LGBT, the answer is yes. We actually host the LGBT conference. Kathy, when, next year? May 2nd, right around the corner. So yes, we believe we have been underrepresented in the LGBT market in many different ways, and we've begun those marketing efforts against those. That's one of our subsets.
Last question, last answer. This is from Thomas McElroy. Where are you, Thomas? Back row, huh? What is your interaction with Chicago Council on Foreign Relations? I think they changed their name. And the international, well, just international folks, like NATO and stuff like that.
Well, we had the good fortune to work with the NATO leadership group when they were here. We took an active role. Rose Horker became so close that she actually got Secret Service clearance. We work very closely. As a matter of fact, Ambassador Dalder is just been announced as the new leader of that organization. That we didn't get the name right. So Ambassador Dalder was so enamored by the way which Chicago operated for NATO. He's the U.S. ambassador to NATO, lives in Brussels, and he was so enamored with what he saw with us developing this, that rather than go back to Washington, D.C., he came out of one of the think tanks, he considered an opportunity here in Chicago. So he and his family moved here in June. So to answer your question, yes, we're going to work very closely with them now and more when he gets involved. We get very involved now through the mayor's office, particularly when it comes to what we can do to support the visit and make a stay more valuable to both foreign as well as domestic visitors.
Round of applause.